Without any further ado, let's dive in. I'm very grateful to have you guys. Would you quickly just start by telling us a little bit about, firstly, GrowthAfrica and then Novastar? If I'm not wrong, you founded GrowthAfrica. So tell us a little bit about the story and where you got to.
Well, the story really starts with, and I'm very happy to see Isaac is present in Ethiopia. I actually started out as an Isaacer myself. I was the president of Isaac in Denmark, and then I became the director of Isaac internationally. Wow. And that brought me to Africa. And in hot pursuit of someone I met in Isaac, I ended up actually putting my roots down here around 20 years ago. Started out as an entrepreneur myself, started an IT company that we grew extremely rapidly. This was the initial .com days back in the late 90s where money was literally hanging on trees. We found a good tree, shook it well, and expanded across Africa into 8 countries on the continent, into Asia, into Malaysia, into Bangladesh, into Nepal, into Vietnam, before everything went bust, and so did we. But that experience kind of taught me what it means to be an entrepreneur, and I was hooked. But I could also see there was a lot of African entrepreneurs who were struggling and didn't really know what to do first and what to do second, and how actually just to get a little bit of pace in what it is that they're trying to achieve. So we founded GrowthAfrica back in 2002, so a little bit more than 16 years ago. We have in many different ways tried to assist entrepreneurs across the continent, have helped, I think, a bit more than 4,000 entrepreneurs over the years, over these 16 years, around 1,800 startups and businesses. And it's taken different forms and shapes. Off late, the last couple of years, what we've called ourselves, though with greater and greater hesitation, is being an accelerator. Greater and greater hesitation because people, they put a lot of meaning into words like incubator and accelerator, and that may not exactly be matching what we try to do. So it's probably better I explain what it is that we do than just put a tag on it. And what we do is we help early stage businesses that are typically in the first 5 years of their existence, are typically turning over between $100,000 and $250,000. They are typically at the stage where they have figured the initial piece out. They have a marketable product. They have some initial traction in terms of their customers. And we help them figure out, so how do you go from that stage to actually become scalable and become attractive in the eyes of investors like Andrew and Novastar and a lot of other people on the continent. A growing amount of investors, I'm happy to say. And we do that through a cohort-based model. So we take in typically 10 to 12 businesses at a time, and through a structured 6-month plus an additional support after that, but in an initial 6 month of teaching you how to actually dissect your business, teaching you how to analyze and understand your business in much more depth than you typically would have understood yourself. So in many ways a very practical and very intense MBA course, but for entrepreneurs and for Africa. So this kind of needs assessment would lead up to, at the end of those 6 months, an understanding of what you need to do next, and what you need to do after that, and what you need to do after that, in order to get some of that traction and become more and more attractive to investors. And that's really what we try to do. So we continue to support our entrepreneurs for up to 3 years with a lot of kind of bespoke in-person or in-venture support through our wonderful team. And I'm happy to say we have 3 of my colleagues here in the room, and we have most of the current cohort and a few of the past cohorts. There we go.
A very passionate crowd in the corner there.
And the last presenter from WizKids is in the current cohort, so I'm happy to say that as well. Yeah, that's, I think, in very few words,
amazing.
Who we are.
And just quickly, where are you based?
So we're based out of Nairobi,
Great.
But have offices here in Addis, in Kampala, in Lilongwe, and in Lusaka.
Fantastic. Brilliant. It's wonderful to have you here, and we're excited to dive deeper into asking some more questions shortly. And Andrew and Novastar, tell us a little bit about you guys.
Sure. So Novastar is an investor who are looking for the next new rising star of the entrepreneurial world. We're looking for people who are going to use business to make the world a better place or blow up trying. So we're really only interested in the people who are going to make a big impact on society. And that's because we believe essentially enterprise is one of the most powerful tools to bring about sustainable social change. We're interested as investors, obviously, in getting a return, a financial return on our investment. But actually, our core motivation is to get a social return on our investment as well. And that's because we believe actually good business brings about sustainable change, as I said. I started actually living here in the late 1970s in the Mengistu regime. I remember looking out the window of my car going, oh my goodness, this economy is so broken and so badly run. We need to see a way to use investment to bring life back to this economy. So it's really exciting for me to be back here so many years later with nearly just $90 million to spend on finding the new rock stars who are going to make a huge impact in Ethiopia. As it happens, we operate across all of East Africa at the moment, although our next fund will also start investing in West Africa. But our whole objective, we're really talent scouts. We're looking for talent who have a real passion to do something amazing to make life better for the man and the woman in the street. You're not the rich guys, not the big guys, but just the regular Joes who need some of these broken value chains to be fixed in order to get a better life. So that's what Novastar is, and that's what we're about.
Wonderful. And my follow-up question, we'll start with you, Andrew, is so what types of businesses are you currently supporting? What types of things have you invested in? And give us some
examples.
Ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're looking to invest in businesses that serve the mass market with really basic goods and services, or indeed use the mass market as a supply base. And in fact, I'm delighted to say we invested in Greenpath, our first investment here in Ethiopia, which is all about powering up the small-scale farmers to reach international markets with world-class organic produce. So that's about driving value into the hands of the small-scale farmers. But we've also invested in education. So one of our early investments is now a vast business of nearly 5,000 people. It runs 500 schools and 100,000 pupils as a very basic, low-cost private primary schooling system called Bridge International Academies. That started in Kenya in 2009 with one school. They had one school when we invested in them. At their peak, they were opening a school every 2.5 days. They've opened up in Nigeria, in Liberia. They've opened up in India, in Andhra Pradesh. They might open up in China, and they're desperate to open up here in Ethiopia. So what they do is they deliver better academic outcomes at primary school level, and particularly effective where there is not enough state provision of primary schooling. So it's a private schooling system, but there's education. We've done power, off-grid power in Uganda. We've done sanitation, as I was discovering from John earlier. Some of the investors, some of the entrepreneurs we backed have been through his program. So they take human waste out of the slums and turn it into organic fertilizer. They also feed black soldier flies, and when they pupate, turn the pupae into protein supplements for animal feeds. So that's a really innovative way of using something like a waste product to turn it into value. We've backed information businesses, low-cost internet access in Kenya. So we've got 15 businesses in the portfolio now, all providing basic goods and services.
Amazing. I had the privilege of spending some time with Novastar before coming out here, and seeing it firsthand just blew my mind, but spurred in inspiration around what was possible here in Ethiopia. And so I'm really, really excited to have both these gentlemen with us. I would love to ask the same question to you, John. So what sort of things do you see? But I also will follow that up with what do you look for in the entrepreneurs that you're investing in or supporting and getting behind? Right.
I think some of the things that are really important to us is an openness to learn. I think kind of being a pig-headed entrepreneur who kind of knows or thinks they know everything would obviously not work for us. I think a fair amount of ambition a fair amount of commitment. So typically having actually sacrificed your own money, your own time, blood, sweat, and tears, and that we can see that you are really invested in this business is also important to us. And then a degree of capacity. So there are limits to what we can do with entrepreneurs. So we would need entrepreneurs to be either well exposed or well educated in order to kind of give them that push. That is a sad fact, unfortunately, but we will be quite discriminatory on that front. That does not rule out that if you're very street savvy, then we certainly will not exclude you just on that account. And we have had a lot of entrepreneurs who may not have had a great deal of formal education go through our program. But I think that level of having overcome the first threshold, not being a startup any longer in the sense of I'm not quite sure what it is that I want to do, having figured out that product market fit, having had some conversations with your customers, because what we typically see, even relatively experienced entrepreneurs are having a very difficult time having conversations with their customers. So at least an openness and a willingness to actually engage their customers, to understand what it is that their customers need, and really to understand what it is that they're really bringing to their customers. And I think that's, in terms of what entrepreneurs they really need, is to have a much more profound understanding of what the underlying needs that they're serving for their customers are, as well as a very deep understanding of why you're doing this in the first place. A lot of entrepreneurs will end up being stuck in entrepreneurship because they didn't actually think this through. So they kind of get captured by either circumstance or other aspects of their lives just to make an income. And if you haven't thought very deeply through why are you doing this, what outcome are you trying to achieve for yourself and for all of your stakeholders, then you may actually end up getting stuck. So if you're not willing to engage in conversations around that, then we'd not be very happy or interested.